The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched far into the distance. Its walls were made of crystal that caught the light from 3 different suns. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in floating chairs that moved without sound. Some had 4 arms, others had tentacles, and a few looked like walking trees. But they all had one thing in common. They thought they ruled the galaxy. Commander Zekthara stood at the center of it all. His blue skin was covered in scars from battles across the stars. 2 of his 4 arms were missing, replaced with metal ones that clicked when he moved. The other aliens whispered as they looked at him. Everyone knew his story. He was the hero of the Rigel War, the soldier who had fought the pirates in the dark between the stars. But today, Zekthara did not look like a hero. His hands shook as he held the speaking device. His eyes darted around the room like he was looking for enemies. The other council members leaned back in their chairs. Some laughed quietly to each other. "Honored Council," Zekthara began, his voice rough from years of shouting orders in battle. "I come before you today with a warning. A warning about a planet called Earth." More laughter rippled through the hall. Earth was known to the Council, but barely. It was a small blue world on the edge of the galaxy. The creatures there had only just learned to travel between stars. They were weak, primitive, and posed no threat to anyone. "Commander Zekthara," said High Counselor Vexmari, her voice dripping with amusement. She was a tall, thin creature with purple skin and eyes like black holes. "Surely you jest, Earth? The little world with the pink bipeds? They have barely left their own star system." "They are called humans," Zekthara said firmly, "and they are the most dangerous creatures I have ever encountered." The laughter grew louder. Someone in the back called out, "Has the old soldier finally lost his mind?" Zekthara's mechanical hands clenched into fists. "Listen to me. I have fought beside them. I have seen what they can do. 3 months ago, my ship was damaged in the Sol system while chasing pirates. The humans offered to help. I thought it would be simple. Show them how real soldiers fight, clean up the criminals, and leave." He paused, looking around the room. The laughter had died down, but he could see the doubt in their alien faces. "The pirates had taken hostages on a mining station," Zekthara continued. 47 innocent workers trapped inside with 50 armed criminals. My tactical computer said we needed at least 200 soldiers to take the station without losing the hostages. We had 30 soldiers in my unit, and, prompted High Counselor Vexmari, though she sounded bored. "The humans sent 12 soldiers." 12! Zekthara's voice rose. "I told their commander it was impossible. He just looked at me with those strange blue eyes and said, 'We don't leave people behind.' Then they attacked." Zekthara began to pace, his metal feet ringing against the crystal floor. "I have fought in 67 battles across 20 star systems. I have seen Krill berserkers who feel no pain. I have watched Vorthon shock troops tear through enemy lines. But I have never seen anything like what those 12 humans did." The council chamber had grown quiet. Even the doubters were listening now. They moved through that station like ghosts. They did not use our advanced weapons or our superior technology. They used knives, small guns, and something else. Something I cannot explain. They worked together like they shared one mind. When one was wounded, another took his place without being told. When they needed to go through a door that was certain death, they did not hesitate. Zekthara stopped pacing and faced the council directly. In 23 minutes, all 50 pirates were dead or captured. All 47 hostages were safe. The humans had taken casualties, 3 wounded, 1 killed. When I asked their commander how they did it, he said something that still haunts me. "What did he say?" asked Counselor Morthen, a large creature covered in green scales. "He said, 'Sir, we're human. We don't know how to quit.'" Some of the council members shifted in their seats. A few exchanged glances. "That is just one story," Zekthara continued. "But I spent 3 weeks with those humans while my ship was repaired. I learned about their history. They have been fighting wars on their planet for thousands of years. Not small conflicts over resources or territory. Total wars where entire nations fought until one side was completely destroyed." He pulled up a holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images of Earth appeared, cities burning, soldiers charging across fields under enemy fire, massive explosions that lit up the sky. "They have a saying," Zekthara said quietly. "Never give up, never surrender." But it is more than words to them. It is part of their nature. I watched human soldiers continue fighting with broken bones. I saw them carry wounded comrades for hours through hostile territory. When they were outnumbered 10-1, they did not retreat. They found a way to win. Fascinating, said High Counselor Vexmari, though her tone suggested she found it anything but. But surely you exaggerate, Commander. No species is as formidable as you describe. Zekthara's eyes blazed with fury. I am not exaggerating. I am trying to save this council from making the worst mistake in galactic history. You want to add Earth to the hegemony? You want to send the First Fleet to demand their surrender? Those humans will fight you with everything they have. And they will not stop fighting until they are all dead or you are. Commander, interrupted Counselor Drax, whose tentacles writhed with irritation. You speak as though these humans could pose a threat to the galactic hegemony. We have fleets that number in the thousands. We have weapons that can crack planets. They have barely managed to build crude spacecraft. Their technology is not advanced, Zekthara admitted. But that does not matter. Do you know what humans do when their technology fails? They improvise. They use whatever they can find to keep fighting. I watched them turn civilian mining equipment into weapons. I saw them use their own damaged ships as battering rams. He brought up another image, a human soldier standing over the body of a fallen comrade, surrounded by alien pirates, his weapon broken, blood streaming down his face, but still fighting with a piece of metal he had torn from the wall. They have something we have lost, Zekthara said softly. Something that all our technology and all our power cannot replace. They believe in something greater than themselves. They will die for their families, their friends, their planet. They will sacrifice everything to protect what they love. The council chamber was silent now. Even the most skeptical members were studying the images with new interest. There is something else, Zekthara continued. Something that should terrify you more than their fighting ability. The humans I met, they asked me about other worlds. They wanted to know about species that had been conquered by the hegemony. When I told them about the slave worlds, about the prison planets, about the millions who suffer under our rule, they were angry. Angry? Asked High Counselor Vexmari. Not just angry, furious. They could not understand how we could allow such things to exist. One of their soldiers, a young female, looked at me and asked, "How can you live with yourselves knowing you could stop the suffering but choose not to?" Zekthara's voice dropped to a whisper. I had no answer for her. For the first time in my life, I was ashamed of what we have built. The hegemony rules through fear and force. We take what we want because we are stronger, but the humans, they believe strength should be used to protect the weak, not enslave them. Enough! High Counselor Vexmari stood up, her chair floating higher into the air. This council has heard enough of your fantasies, Commander. Perhaps your injuries have affected your judgment. These humans are primitives who have barely learned to leave their own planet. The idea that they could threaten the galactic hegemony is absurd. You are making a mistake, Zekthara warned. A terrible mistake that will cost us everything. The only mistake, said Counselor Drax, would be listening to the ravings of a broken old soldier. Earth will join the hegemony like every other world. They will surrender when they see our fleet just like all the others. And if they do not surrender? Zekthara asked. High Counselor Vexmari smiled coldly. Then they will be destroyed, quickly and efficiently, as an example to any other worlds that might consider resistance. Zekthara looked around the chamber one last time. He saw the arrogance in their faces, the absolute certainty that they were superior to every other species in the galaxy. He had seen that same look on the faces of the pirates who had underestimated the humans. I have given you my warning, he said finally. When your fleets return in defeat, when your soldiers tell you stories that sound impossible, when the humans come hunting you across the stars, remember this moment. Remember that I tried to tell you the truth. He turned and walked toward the exit, his metal feet echoing in the silent chamber. Commander! Called High Counselor Vexmari. Where are you going? Zekthara stopped but did not turn around. Home to prepare for war, the real war that is coming. There will be no war, she said confidently. The humans will surrender or die. It will be over in days. Zekthara finally turned back to face the council. For the first time since entering the chamber, he smiled. But it was not a pleasant smile. High Counselor, he said quietly, you have no idea what you have just started. The humans have a saying about their wars. This time it's personal. You're about to make it very personal. He left the chamber without another word. Behind him, the council members began debating the details of Earth's conquest. They talked about ship deployments and occupation forces. They discussed how to divide up the planet's resources once the humans were defeated. None of them noticed that Zekthara had left his personal communicator behind, still transmitting to a hidden frequency. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a human intelligence officer listened to every word they said. The humans would not be surprised when the fleet arrived. They would be ready. And as Zekthara had tried to warn them, a ready human was the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. Admiral Velteran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, and felt completely confident. Behind him, through the massive viewing windows, he could see 200 ships of the Galactic Hegemony's First Fleet. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien engineering, armed with weapons that could level cities and protected by shields that had never been broken. "Sir," reported his communications officer, a small creature with 6 eyes, "we are approaching the Sol system. The target planet Earth is directly ahead." "Excellent," Velteran replied. His species, the Vorthak, were natural predators. They had conquered dozens of worlds for the hegemony. This would be no different. "Begin standard intimidation protocols. Transmit surrender demands on all frequencies." The communications officer worked at his console for several minutes, then looked up with confusion. "Sir, we are receiving responses from the planet, but they are unusual." "How so?" "They are not surrendering, sir. In fact, they appear to be coordinating defensive efforts. Multiple nations on the planet are sharing military data and combining their fleets." Admiral Velteran laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Their fleets? How many ships do they have?" "Approximately 300 vessels, sir. Most appear to be cargo ships that have been modified with weapons." 300 primitive ships against our fleet? Velteran shook his head in amusement. "This will be over before lunch. Helm, take us into orbit. Weapons, prepare to fire on their largest cities. Once we destroy a few million of them, the rest will see reason." But as the hegemony fleet moved toward Earth, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not retreat. Instead, they formed a defensive line between the alien fleet and their planet. Their formation was crude but determined. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "the humans are hailing us. Put them through. I want to hear them beg." The main screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in a military uniform. Behind him, Velteran could see the bridge of what appeared to be a converted cargo vessel. The human looked tired but resolute. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said calmly. "You are in violation of Earth's sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Velteran burst into laughter. "Face the consequences? Little creature, do you have any idea who you are speaking to?" "I am Admiral Velteran of the Galactic Hegemony. I command enough firepower to turn your entire planet into cosmic dust." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Then you'll have to go through us first." "So be it." Velteran cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their lead ships. Fire when ready." The first volley from the hegemony fleet was devastating. 20 human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The alien weapons were far superior to anything Earth possessed. But instead of retreating, the remaining human ships moved forward. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, his voice uncertain, "the humans are advancing. They appear to be attempting to close the distance." "Let them come," Velteran said. "Our shields will protect us and we can destroy them at our leisure." But the humans were not planning a conventional attack. As they approached the alien fleet, something became clear. They were not trying to win a traditional space battle. They were trying to get close enough to ram. "Warning," called the sensors operator. "Multiple human vessels on collision courses." The first human ship, a converted mining vessel called the Pittsburgh, slammed into the side of a hegemony destroyer. Both ships exploded, but the alien vessel's shields failed first. A second human ship followed immediately, crashing into another destroyer. "What are they doing?" Velteran demanded. "They are destroying themselves." On the human ships, crews made impossible decisions. Captain Maria Santos of the Sao Paulo knew her ship was doomed when alien weapons tore through her engines. Instead of abandoning ship, she ordered her crew to the escape pods and manually piloted her vessel into the bridge of a hegemony cruiser. "This is for my children," she whispered as her ship impacted the aliens had never encountered tactics like these. In civilized warfare, ships retreated when they were damaged. Crews surrendered when defeat was certain. But the humans seemed to view their own ships as weapons to be expended. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice was rising in panic. "The humans are broadcasting something on all frequencies. I think they are saying goodbye to their families." Velteran listened to the intercepted transmissions with growing unease. Human voices speaking in dozens of languages, all saying similar things. "Tell Mom I love her. Take care of the kids for me. See you on the other side. Brother, remember me." These were not the words of soldiers expecting to survive. These were the words of people who had already accepted death. The human ship New York had lost half its hull to alien fire, but its captain, a young woman named Lisa Park, kept fighting. When her weapons failed, she used her ship's construction tools as makeshift cannons, firing mining charges at the enemy. When those ran out, she rammed her crippled vessel into an alien supply ship. "Bridge to all ships," came Admiral Chen's voice over the human fleet frequency. "Remember why we're here. Every minute we hold them, every ship we take down is one less threat to Earth. Make them pay for every meter." The battle was unlike anything in the hegemony's military history. Human ships with no chance of victory continued fighting until they were nothing but debris. Crews that should have surrendered instead found new ways to damage their enemies. One human freighter, completely unarmed, used its cargo hold full of asteroids as ammunition, firing rocks at alien ships until its hull breached. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we have lost 37 ships." Velteran stared at him in disbelief. 37? Against these primitives? "The humans appear to be using unconventional tactics, sir. They are treating their ships as expendable weapons. Our crews are not prepared for opponents who actively seek to die in combat." On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, alarms began sounding. A badly damaged human destroyer had broken through the alien defensive line and was heading straight for the flagship. "Shields up," Velteran ordered. "Destroy that ship." But the human destroyer, commanded by Captain James Mitchell, had already planned for this moment. His ship was dead in space, engines destroyed, life support failing. His crew had evacuated, but he remained at the helm. "This is for everyone who won't make it home," he said quietly, then pushed his ship's reactor into overload. The explosion when the Brisbane hit the Eternal Glory was visible from Earth. The flagship's shields held, but barely. The impact sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. "Status report," Velteran demanded. "Shields at 15%, sir. Hull damage on decks 7 through 12. The humans, sir, they are still coming." What remained of the human fleet, now less than 50 ships, continued their advance. They moved with the determination of a species that would rather die fighting than live in chains. But it was not just their willingness to die that shook the alien crews. It was how they died. Human ships would explode, and seconds later, the aliens would detect escape pods launching toward Earth. The humans were saving every crew member they could, even while sacrificing their ships. Captain Ana Rodriguez of the Mexico City had her entire crew in escape pods, but she stayed behind to manually aim her ship at an alien cruiser. As her vessel broke apart around her, she transmitted one final message: for Earth, for humanity, for the future. The aliens began to understand that they were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting an entire species that had decided death was preferable to surrender. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving transmissions from Earth. The planet's population is... They are sending messages to their fleet." "What kind of messages?" "Encouragement, sir. The entire planet is watching the battle. They are telling their soldiers they are proud of them, that they love them, that they will not forget their sacrifice." On screens throughout the alien fleet, humans could be seen gathering in public spaces on Earth, watching the battle unfold. They were not panicking or fleeing. They were singing. Songs of courage, songs of defiance, songs of hope. One transmission caught Velteran's attention. It was from a young human child, maybe 8 years old, speaking into a communication device. "Daddy, I know you can hear me. Thank you for protecting us. I'm not scared anymore because I know you won't let the bad guys win. I love you." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Velteran felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. "Sir," called the tactical officer urgently. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive movement throughout human space. Ships are launching from every planet, every station, every asteroid base they have. More ships? Hundreds of them, sir. But these are not military vessels. They appear to be civilian craft. Cargo ships, passenger liners, even personal spacecraft. They are all heading toward Earth. Veltarin stared at the sensor readings. An entire species was mobilizing for war. Not just their military, but everyone. Farmers were flying grain haulers toward the battle. Students were piloting school ships. Retirees were coming out of space stations in vessels that had not flown in decades. They are all transmitting the same message, the communications officer reported. What message? We are coming, that's all. Just we are coming. The battle around Earth continued for 6 more hours. By the end, the human fleet was completely destroyed. Every ship had been reduced to wreckage, but the cost to the hegemony was staggering. They had lost 63 ships, with 40 more severely damaged. Thousands of alien crew members were dead, and Earth was still there, still defiant. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, recommend we withdraw to reassess the situation. Veltarin wanted to refuse, wanted to order the bombardment of Earth's cities, but he looked at his fleet scattered and bloodied and realized the truth that Zekthara had tried to warn the Council about. The humans had lost every ship, but they had won the battle. They had shown the galaxy that the hegemony could bleed. Begin retreat, he ordered quietly. As the alien fleet limped away from Earth, they left behind a field of debris that stretched for thousands of kilometers. But among the wreckage of human ships, something else floated in the darkness. Thousands of escape pods carrying the survivors back to Earth. The humans had lost their fleet, but they had saved their people. And as the pods were recovered, as the survivors were welcomed home as heroes, as the entire planet prepared for the next attack, one thing became clear. This was not over. This was just the beginning. Back on Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the ruins of Earth's orbital command center looking at the casualty reports. 90% of Earth's space fleet was gone, but when asked by a reporter if he thought the battle was worth it, his answer was simple. We sent a message today. We told the galaxy that humanity doesn't surrender, that we protect our own, that if you want to take our freedom, you'll have to earn it with blood. He paused, looking up at the stars where alien ships had fled. And next time, he said quietly, we'll be ready for them. In the depths of space, Admiral Veltarin composed his report to the Galactic Council, but he struggled with how to explain what he had witnessed. How do you tell your superiors that you had been defeated by an enemy that welcomed death? How do you describe tactics that no civilized species would use? In the end, he wrote just 4 words that would change the course of galactic history. Recommend immediate reinforcement. 6 months after the first battle, the Second Fleet arrived at Earth. Admiral Veltarin had been relieved of command for his failure and replaced by Admiral Kexfor, a ruthless strategist from the core worlds. This time, the hegemony was taking no chances. 800 ships surrounded the Sol system in a formation designed to crush any resistance. Signal the planet, Admiral Kexfor ordered from his command ship, the Galactic Dominion. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. The response came back within minutes. It was not from Admiral Chen or any military leader. Instead, it was from an elderly human woman sitting at a simple desk. This is Secretary General Williams of the United Earth Government, she said calmly. We have discussed your demands and reached a unanimous decision. Our answer is no. Admiral Kexivor, a massive creature with armored skin and multiple heads, growled in frustration. You see the size of our fleet, human. You have no ships left to defend yourselves. Surrender now and your species will be allowed to live as servants of the hegemony. Secretary General Williams smiled sadly. Admiral, I think you misunderstand something fundamental about humanity. We would rather die free than live as slaves. That has always been our way. Then you will die, Kexivor snarled. We will blockade your system. We will destroy any ship that tries to leave. We will bomb your cities until you beg for mercy. Do what you must, Williams replied. We will do what we must. The siege began immediately. Alien ships took positions throughout the solar system, cutting off all trade routes and supply lines. Any human vessel that attempted to leave was destroyed without warning. The bombardment of Earth's major cities commenced, targeting military installations and industrial centers. But something strange happened. Instead of breaking human resistance, the attack seemed to make them stronger. In the ruins of New York, construction crews worked around the clock to build new defenses. In London, factory workers converted subway tunnels into weapon manufacturing facilities. In Tokyo, Students and teachers worked together to create underground communication networks that the aliens could not detect. "Sir," reported Commander Thexal, Kexivor's intelligence officer, "the humans are not responding as expected to the bombardment." "Explain." "Rather than seeking shelter or fleeing, they appear to be organizing. Each attack on their cities results in more coordinated resistance efforts. They are sharing resources, combining military units, and, sir, they are launching attacks." Kexivor's middle head turned to stare at him. "Attacks with what?" "They have no fleet. They are using civilian spacecraft, sir. Modified cargo haulers, racing ships, even personal transport pods. They launch from hidden bases and attack our patrol ships before retreating to Earth's atmosphere." The human resistance was indeed unlike anything the hegemony had faced. Small groups of volunteers would take old mining ships and convert them into guided missiles. They would fill cargo containers with explosives and pilot them into alien vessels. Most attacks resulted in the complete destruction of the human craft, but they inflicted damage far beyond what should have been possible. Captain Sarah Kim piloted a converted ambulance ship on what she knew was a suicide mission. Her target was an alien supply convoy headed for the blockade fleet. She had enough fuel for a one-way trip and carried enough explosives to crack a small moon. "This is Mercy Flight to Earth Control," she transmitted as she approached the enemy ships. "Beginning final approach. Tell my family I love them." Her ship screamed through space toward the largest alien cargo vessel. Enemy fighters moved to intercept, but she had planned for this. At the last moment, she ejected every piece of medical equipment from her ship's cargo bay, creating a cloud of debris that confused the alien sensors. The explosion when she hit the supply ship lit up half the solar system, but the suicide attacks were only part of humanity's strategy. What truly worried the alien command was something else entirely: the broadcasts. Every human attack was transmitted live across the galaxy. The aliens tried to jam the signals, but the humans had hidden transmitters throughout their solar system. Each act of defiance, each impossible victory, each sacrifice was beamed to every corner of hegemony space. On the slave world of Kepler 442b, alien overseers watched in amazement as their subjects gathered around hidden communication devices, listening to stories from Earth. The downtrodden workers heard about humans who fought back against impossible odds. They learned about people who chose death over slavery. "Sir," reported Commander Thexal during a strategy meeting, "we are detecting unusual activity on 17 different worlds within our territory." "What kind of activity?" "Work slowdowns, sir. Acts of sabotage. On Vega Prime, the mining operations have decreased by 30%. On Altair 4, the weapon factories are reporting equipment failures daily. It appears that news of human resistance is inspiring rebellion among our subject species." Admiral Kexvor slammed a massive fist on the command table. "Impossible. These species have been pacified for centuries. They know the penalty for rebellion, yes sir, but the humans seem to be broadcasting instructions along with their battle reports. They are teaching other species how to make weapons from industrial equipment, how to organize resistance cells, how to disrupt hegemony operations without being detected." The truth was even worse than the Admiral realized. The humans were not just fighting for their own freedom. They were trying to free the entire galaxy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a former teacher who had become one of Earth's top resistance coordinators, worked from a hidden bunker beneath the ruins of Mexico City. Her job was not to build weapons or plan attacks. Her job was to teach. "Remember," she said into her transmitter, speaking to hidden receivers across dozens of worlds, "the hegemony's strength comes from your fear. They rule because you believe they cannot be defeated. But look at us. We are primitive by their standards, and we are making them bleed." Her lessons were simple but effective: how to recognize which alien equipment could be converted into explosives, how to organize without leaving communication traces, how to share information without being detected. Most importantly, how to believe that freedom was possible. On the prison world of Proxima 7, a creature called Velnath listened to the human broadcasts in the darkness of his cell. His people had been enslaved for 300 years. He had never imagined that the hegemony could be resisted, but now he heard stories of humans who faced death with songs on their lips. He learned about people who protected strangers as fiercely as their own families. He discovered that somewhere in the galaxy, there were beings who believed that all creatures deserved to be free. Velnath began to plan. Back in the Sol system, the siege continued. The alien bombardment had reduced most of Earth's major cities to rubble, but the humans adapted. They moved underground, building vast tunnel networks that connected continents. They created mobile factories that could be assembled and disassembled within hours. They turned every asteroid, every piece of space debris, every abandoned satellite into a potential weapon. "Sir," Commander Thexel reported, "the humans have launched another wave of attacks. This time they are using rocks." "Rocks?" "Asteroids, sir. They have attached small engines to them and are guiding them toward our ships. The projectiles are too small for our weapons to target effectively, but they carry enough kinetic energy to damage our hulls." Admiral Kexvor watched the tactical display in disbelief. Hundreds of small asteroids were moving through space toward his fleet, each one piloted by a human volunteer. His ship's point defense systems could stop most of them, but not all. The human strategy was simple. If you cannot build advanced weapons, use the universe itself as ammunition. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the cockpit of his modified asteroid, a chunk of rock barely large enough to hold a pilot and guidance system. He had volunteered for this mission because his daughter was sick, and the alien blockade was preventing medical supplies from reaching Earth. "Tower control, this is Rockhopper 7, he transmitted. "I have visual on target. Beginning final approach." His asteroid slammed into the side of an alien destroyer at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The ship's hull cracked like an eggshell. But the most disturbing development for the hegemony was not the attacks themselves. It was how other species were responding to them. On Tau Ceti 3, the local governor was assassinated by his own security chief, who then broadcast a message calling for freedom. On Wolf 359, the entire population of a factory world went on strike simultaneously. On Barnard Star, alien supply convoys began disappearing without explanation. The rebellion was spreading. "Admiral," Commander Thexel said quietly during their daily briefing, "I must report that we have lost contact with 14 different worlds in the past month." "Not destroyed, sir. Lost contact. The local governments have stopped responding to our transmissions." "Send investigation fleets," Kexvor ordered. "We tried, sir. The investigation fleets have also stopped reporting in." For the first time since taking command, Admiral Kexvor felt fear. The humans had been under siege for 8 months. Their planet was scarred, their cities destroyed, their military completely eliminated. By every measure of civilized warfare, they should have surrendered. Instead, they had somehow turned their defeat into a galaxy-wide revolution. "Sir," the communications officer called out urgently, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They are ordering us to end the siege and return to core space immediately." "What? Why?" "Apparently, sir, there are rebellions breaking out on over 50 worlds. The Council needs the Second Fleet to restore order." Admiral Kexvor stared at the tactical display showing Earth, scarred and burning but still defiant. He realized that Zekthara had been right. The humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of their technology or their weapons, but because of their ideas. They had taught the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for. As the Second Fleet began its withdrawal from the Sol system, every human on Earth watched from their underground shelters and hidden bases. They had lost millions of people. Their planet was damaged beyond recognition. But they had won something more valuable than victory. They had given hope to an entire galaxy. Secretary General Williams stood in what had once been the United Nations building, now just a crater in the ground. But her message was broadcast from hidden transmitters to every corner of space. "To our friends among the stars, to all those who suffer under the boot of oppression, hear this. Earth stands. Humanity endures. We have shown that the hegemony can be resisted. Now it is time to show them that they can be defeated." She paused, looking up at the stars where alien ships were retreating. "The siege is over," she said quietly. "The war has just begun." In his prison cell on the core world of Rigel Prime, Commander Zekthara smiled as he listened to the reports. The Council had labeled him a traitor for refusing to participate in the siege. They had stripped him of his rank and thrown him into their most secure facility. But through the walls of his cell he could hear other prisoners talking. Species from across the galaxy, all inspired by stories from a small blue world on the edge of space. They were planning. They were organizing. They were learning to be human. The galaxy would never be the same. 8 months after the siege ended, the first reports reached Hegemony High Command. A supply convoy near the Vega system had simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. The ships were there one moment, gone the next, leaving only empty space and confused long-range sensors. Admiral Torvik, the new Supreme Fleet Commander, dismissed the reports as exaggeration. Supply convoys were vulnerable to pirates and rebels. It was unfortunate but not unusual. Then it happened again. And again. "Sir," reported his aide, a nervous creature with too many eyes, "we have now lost 17 convoys in the past month. In each case, the ships disappeared without sending distress signals." "Increased rebel activity," Torvik said dismissively. "Double the escort fleets." But doubling the escorts did not help. If anything, it made the problem worse. Now entire battle groups were disappearing. The truth was something the hegemony could not have imagined. The humans had not been idle during the siege. While their planet burned, their best minds had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Every crashed ship, every captured weapon. Every fragment of debris had been analyzed and reverse-engineered. Captain Lisa Park, who had survived the first battle by escaping in a damaged pod, now stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first starship built with alien technology. Around her, a crew of volunteers worked at stations that combined human ingenuity with hegemony engineering. "Target acquired," reported her tactical officer, a former mining engineer named Marcus Chen. "Alien convoy. 12 ships, minimal escort. Any sign they've detected us?" Lisa asked, negative. "The stealth modifications are working perfectly." The humans had learned something important during the siege. The hegemony's technology was advanced, but it was also predictable. Their sensors looked for specific energy signatures. Their weapons targeted known threat profiles. Their shields were calibrated against conventional attacks, but humans were not conventional. "Begin the rescue operation," Lisa ordered. The Defiance moved silently through space toward the alien convoy. Its hull was coated with adaptive camouflage developed from mining equipment, used to hide from dangerous asteroids. Its engines used a modified design that scattered their emissions to look like background radiation. The alien convoy never saw them coming. "This is Captain Park of the Human Liberation Fleet." Lisa broadcast on all frequencies as her ship appeared directly among the convoy vessels. "We are here to free the slaves you carry. Surrender your ships and you will not be harmed." The alien convoy commander, a Vorthak named Sultan, laughed at the transmission. "One primitive ship against my entire convoy? You must be insane." "No," Lisa replied calmly. "We're human." What happened next would be reported across the galaxy as the Vega miracle. The single human ship somehow disabled the entire convoy without destroying a single vessel. The alien crews were placed in escape pods and given enough supplies to reach the nearest hegemony world. The slaves were freed and offered passage to any world they chose. But most shocking of all, the human ship had vanished again, leaving behind only a message. "Freedom is not negotiable. We are coming for all of them." The rescue at Vega was just the beginning. Human ships began appearing throughout hegemony space, always where they were least expected. They freed slave convoys, liberated prison worlds, and rescued populations from forced labor camps. The aliens could not understand how the humans were doing it. Their intelligence networks detected no massive fleet movements. Their sensors found no evidence of a human invasion force. Yet somehow human ships kept appearing in places they should not be able to reach. The answer was simple. The humans were not mounting an invasion. They were mounting a liberation. Commander Sarah Kim, who had survived her kamikaze attack by ejecting at the last moment, now led a small fleet of converted civilian ships through the Outer Rim territories. Her mission was not to conquer worlds, but to free them. "Remember," she told her crew as they approached the prison world of Kepler 438b, "we are not here to replace the hegemony. We are here to give these people the chance to free themselves." The prison world held over 2 million beings from dozens of different species, all condemned to forced labor in the uranium mines. It was guarded by a small fleet and considered impregnable. Sarah's solution was typically human. She did not attack the guards. Instead, she landed her ships in the middle of the prison complex and began distributing weapons to the prisoners. "This is Commander Kim of the Human Liberation Fleet," she broadcast to every communication device on the planet. "We have weapons, supplies, and transport for anyone who wants to fight for their freedom. The choice is yours." The response was overwhelming. Within hours, the entire prison population had risen in revolt. Guards who had brutalized the prisoners for years suddenly found themselves outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The orbital defense fleet tried to intervene, but they faced a problem no military manual had ever addressed. How do you bomb a rebellion when the rebels include representatives from your own subject species? By the time hegemony reinforcements arrived, Kepler 438b was free. The humans had left behind weapons, communication equipment, and detailed instructions on how to maintain their independence. Most importantly, they had left behind hope. "Sir," reported Admiral Torvek's intelligence chief, "we need to discuss the human situation. It is far more serious than we initially believed." "How so?" "They are not trying to conquer territory, sir. They are trying to inspire rebellion. Every world they visit becomes a center of resistance. The freed slaves do not simply disappear. They join the human cause. We estimate that the Liberation Fleet has grown from a few dozen ships to over 3,000. Admiral Torvek studied the tactical display showing human activity throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked freed worlds, yellow indicated active rebellions, and green showed planets still under hegemony control. There was far too much red and yellow. How are they recruiting so many ships? Where are they getting their crews? That is the most disturbing part, sir. The crews are not all human. Every species they liberate provides volunteers for their fleet. They have created a truly galactic alliance united by a single principle: the rejection of slavery. The truth was even more concerning than the Admiral realized. The human liberation fleet had become something unprecedented in galactic history. A military force with no central government, no territory to defend, and no goal other than freedom for all sentient beings. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who had spent the siege teaching resistance techniques, now traveled from world to world in a converted hospital ship. But instead of treating injuries, she treated something far more dangerous: despair. "You have been slaves for so long that you have forgotten what freedom feels like," she told a gathering of liberated miners on Proxima 7. "But freedom is not something that can be given to you. It is something you must take for yourself." Her audience included dozens of species that had been conquered by the hegemony over the centuries. They had learned to accept their fate, to survive by serving their masters. But the humans taught them something different. "On Earth," Elena continued, "and we have a saying, 'Give me liberty or give me death.' This is not a threat. It is a promise. We promise that we will never stop fighting for freedom, no matter the cost." She gestured to the humans in her crew, former teachers and doctors and engineers who had become soldiers in a war they never wanted to fight. "Look at us," she said. "We are not warriors by nature. We are explorers, builders, dreamers. But when faced with slavery, we chose to become something else. We chose to become free." The effect of her words could be measured in the reports reaching hegemony high command. Every world the humans visited experienced massive increases in resistance activity. Productivity in the slave colonies plummeted as workers began to sabotage their own facilities. Hegemony officials found themselves under constant threat of assassination by their own subjects. "Sir," the intelligence chief reported during their daily briefing, "I must inform you that we have lost effective control of 47 star systems, not to direct human attack but to local rebellion inspired by human contact." 47 systems? Admiral Torvek could not hide his shock. "How is that possible?" "The humans have introduced a new concept to galactic warfare, sir. They call it asymmetric resistance. Instead of conquering worlds with their own forces, they teach the local populations to conquer themselves." The Admiral studied the reports in disbelief. On Altair 4, the weapons factories had been destroyed from within by their own workers. On Tau Ceti, the planetary governor had been overthrown by his own security forces. On Wolf 359, the entire population had simply walked away from their jobs and disappeared into the wilderness. "What do they want?" he asked. "The humans, I mean. What are their demands?" "That is the most troubling aspect, sir. They have made no demands. They seek no territory, no tribute, no political control. Their only stated goal is the complete abolition of slavery throughout the galaxy." Admiral Torvek felt a chill run through his body. An enemy that wanted territory could be negotiated with. An enemy that wanted resources could be bought off. But an enemy that wanted to destroy the very foundation of your civilization could only be stopped by total victory or total defeat. "Sir," called the communications officer, We are receiving a transmission from the core worlds. It appears that, sir, there has been an incident on Rigel Prime. What kind of incident? The maximum security prison has been breached, sir. All political prisoners have been freed, including former Commander Zekthara. The prison break on Rigel Prime was the most audacious human operation yet. A small team of liberation specialists had infiltrated the most secure facility in hegemony space, freed over 10,000 political prisoners, and escaped without a single casualty. The team was led by Captain Jake Morrison, the same man who had piloted an asteroid into an alien destroyer during the siege. He had survived by ejecting at the last moment, and had spent months planning this mission. Zekthara, he said as he cut the former commander's bonds, we heard you tried to warn them about us. The old alien soldier looked at the young human with something approaching awe. You came for me? But I am not even your species. Doesn't matter, Jake replied. You stood up for what was right. That makes you family. As they escaped through the tunnels Jake's team had carved through solid rock, Zekthara marveled at the human approach to warfare. They had not come to Rigel Prime to destroy it. They had come to save every being trapped within its prisons. There is something you should know, Zekthara told Jake as they reached their extraction point. The Council is planning something desperate. They are calling it the final solution. What is it? They plan to destroy Earth itself, to make an example that will terrify the galaxy back into submission. Jake's expression hardened. Then we better make sure they don't get the chance. As the Liberation Fleet carried 10,000 freed prisoners to safety, messages began transmitting across the galaxy. The humans had not just freed a prison. They had freed the leaders of resistance movements from dozens of worlds. Admiral Torvek received the final report as he prepared for sleep in his quarters. The numbers were staggering. Over 100 star systems in open rebellion, the Liberation Fleet estimated at over 5,000 ships, and hegemony authority crumbling throughout the outer rim. But the last line of the report made him realize that everything had changed. It was a simple statement from the human fleet. We are no longer the hunted. You are. In the depths of space, Secretary General Williams stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Terra Libertas. Around her, beings from dozens of species worked together as equals, united by their shared commitment to freedom. Madam Secretary, reported her tactical officer, a freed slave from Kepler 438b. Long-range sensors are detecting massive fleet movements from the core worlds. It appears the hegemony is mobilizing everything they have. Williams nodded grimly. They are going to try to end this the only way they know how, with overwhelming force. Orders, ma'am? She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, the hegemony was preparing for one final, desperate battle. But she also knew that those same stars now sheltered millions of beings who had tasted freedom and would never accept slavery again. Send a message to all Liberation Fleet units, she said calmly. Tell them it's time to come home. Tell them Earth is calling her children back. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and for the first time since the war started, humanity would not be fighting alone. 2 years after the first human ship appeared in hegemony space, the greatest fleet in galactic history assembled near the core worlds. But it was not the hegemony fleet that impressed observers. It was the Liberation Alliance that had grown around humanity's cause. Over 10,000 ships from hundreds of different species moved in perfect formation toward the hegemony's last stronghold. Former slaves piloted vessels alongside their liberators. Ancient enemies flew wing to wing, united by their shared hatred of oppression. Admiral Chen, now commanding the Alliance fleet from the rebuilt Terra, looked out at the massive armada and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Pride in what they had accomplished, sadness for what it had cost. Sir, reported his communications officer, a young Vorthak named Velnas whose family had been freed from the labor camps. We are receiving a transmission from the Hegemony Council. They are requesting a meeting. After 2 years of war, now they want to talk? Chen shook his head. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, showing High Counselor Vex Mari. She looked older than when Zekthara had first warned the Council about humanity. The arrogance was gone, replaced by desperate fear. Admiral Chen, she began, I am authorized to offer terms for a ceasefire. The hegemony is prepared to make significant concessions to end this conflict. What kind of concessions? Chen asked, though he already knew the answer would not be enough. We will reduce tribute requirements from subject worlds by 30%. We will improve conditions in the labor camps. We will allow limited self-governance for compliant species. Behind Chen, the bridge crew exchanged glances. Many of them were former slaves who had suffered under those very conditions. The offer was insulting. "Counselor," Chen said quietly, "let me explain something to you. This war was never about better conditions for slaves. It was about ending slavery entirely." "Be reasonable," Vexmari pleaded. "The galactic economy depends on the current system. Chaos will follow if you destroy the established order." "Then we will build a better order," Chen replied. "One based on freedom instead of fear." He gestured to cut the transmission, but Vexmari called out desperately, "Wait! What do you want from us? What are your terms?" Chen paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Humans and aliens, former enemies now united, all waiting for his answer. "Unconditional surrender," he said finally. "Complete dissolution of the hegemony. Freedom for all enslaved populations. And trials for those responsible for centuries of oppression." "Impossible," Vexmari snarled, her desperation turning to rage. "You ask us to destroy ourselves." "No," Chen said sadly. "We ask you to become something better." The transmission ended and Chen turned to his tactical officer. "Signal the fleet. Prepare for final assault." But before the Alliance fleet could move, something unexpected happened. Ships began breaking away from the hegemony formation. Not many at first, just a few scout vessels. Then entire squadrons. Within hours, half the hegemony fleet had defected to the Alliance. "Sir," reported Velnas in amazement, "we are receiving surrender transmissions from over 300 hegemony vessels. They are requesting permission to join the Alliance." Chen was not surprised. The Liberation Fleet had been broadcasting messages to hegemony crews for months, reminding them that many of their own species had been conquered and enslaved by the core worlds centuries ago. The crew members were fighting to maintain a system that had originally oppressed their own ancestors. Captain Sarah Kim, now commanding a task force of liberated worlds, received the surrender of an entire hegemony battle group. As the enemy commander, a proud Krill warrior named Thextan came aboard her ship. She could see the conflict in his eyes. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why are you showing mercy to those who would have destroyed you?" Sarah thought of all the battles they had fought, all the friends they had lost, all the pain that could have been avoided if the galaxy had chosen cooperation over conquest. "Because," she said, "we learned something important during this war. The cycle of revenge never ends unless someone chooses to break it." She gestured to her crew, which included former hegemony soldiers who had joined the Alliance. "We are not here to replace one empire with another. We are here to make sure no empire can ever rise again." The final battle for the core worlds lasted only 6 hours. The remaining hegemony loyalists, led by Admiral Torvek, fought with the desperation of beings who knew their way of life was ending. But they were vastly outnumbered and fighting against crews that included their own former subjects. When Torvek's flagship was boarded by Alliance Marines, the old admiral expected to be executed as a war criminal. Instead, he found himself face to face with Commander Zekthara, who had volunteered to lead the boarding party. "Old friend," Zekthara said sadly, "it is over." Torvek looked around at the mixed crew of humans and aliens securing his ship. "What will happen to us?" "That depends," Zekthara replied, "on whether you choose to help build something better or cling to what was." 3 months later, the Galactic Council chambers had been transformed. Instead of floating thrones for the elite, there were simple seats arranged in a circle. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds sat as equals, debating the formation of the Free Galactic Coalition. Secretary General Williams, now serving as interim coordinator, looked around the chamber where Zekthara had once tried to warn about humanity's danger. The irony was not lost on her. "The question before us," she said, "is not how to govern the galaxy, but whether it should be governed at all." The debate that followed lasted for weeks. Some species wanted strong central authority to prevent future wars. Others demanded complete independence. A few suggested that humans should rule, given their role in the liberation. It was Zekthara who proposed the solution that would define the new galactic order. "We have learned," he told the assembly, "that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The hegemony fell because it concentrated too much authority in too few hands. Let us not repeat that mistake." His proposal was simple. The Free Galactic Coalition would have no permanent leaders, no standing armies, and no authority to tax or conscript. Instead, It would serve as a forum for cooperation and a last resort for defense against external threats. But who will enforce the peace? Asked a representative from the former slave worlds. Williams stood to answer. We will, all of us. The coalition will maintain rapid response fleets staffed by volunteers from member worlds. Any act of aggression against any member will be met by the combined forces of all members. And if someone tries to recreate the hegemony, asked another representative, then they will face the same fate as the original, Williams replied firmly. The vote to establish the Free Galactic Coalition was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, over 1,000 species had agreed to govern themselves through cooperation rather than conquest. 5 years after the coalition's founding, Admiral Chen stood in the military academy on New Geneva, addressing a graduating class of officers from dozens of different worlds. Among them were humans and Vorthak, former slaves and former masters, all united by their commitment to freedom. You are the guardians of something precious, he told them. Not an empire or a territory, but an idea. The idea that all sentient beings deserve to be free. In the front row, a young Krill officer raised her hand. Admiral, what if we face an enemy too powerful for the coalition to defeat? Chen smiled, remembering a similar question from his own youth. Then we will do what humans have always done. We will find a way to win. But more importantly, we will make sure that even if we lose, the idea of freedom survives. He looked out at the mixed crowd of species, seeing in them the future that Zekthara had envisioned when he first warned the Council about humanity. Your job is not to be the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, Chen continued. Your job is to remember why we fought this war. We fought so that no being would ever again have to choose between slavery and death. After the ceremony, Chen walked through the academy grounds with Zekthara, who now served as the coalition's first director of peace studies. The old warrior moved slowly, his artificial limbs creaking with age, but his mind remained sharp. Do you think we succeeded? Zekthara asked, as they watched young officers from dozens of species training together. Look around, Chen replied. 5 years ago, these species were enemies or strangers. Now they are partners. Their children will grow up free, with opportunities we could never have imagined. They paused at a memorial wall listing the names of all those who had died in the Liberation War. Human names were mixed with alien ones, soldiers and civilians, heroes and ordinary people who had chosen to fight for something greater than themselves. I sometimes wonder, Zekthara mused, what would have happened if the Council had listened to my warning? Chen considered the question. Honestly, I think we would have found another way to free the galaxy. That is what humans do, we find a way. Even if it means war? Especially if it means war, Chen said firmly. But only as a last resort. We learned something important during this conflict. True victory is not defeating your enemies. It is turning them into friends. As they walked, they passed a group of children playing in the academy courtyard. The children represented a dozen different species, but they played together without regard for their differences. To them, the idea that anyone could own another being was as foreign as the idea that water could flow uphill. That, Chen said, pointing to the children, is our real victory. Not the battles we won, but the future we secured. In the years that followed, the Free Galactic Coalition would face many challenges. Pirates attempted to exploit the new system's openness. Authoritarian movements tried to recreate the old ways. External threats tested the alliance's resolve. But each challenge was met with the same response that had defeated the hegemony: cooperation, determination, and an unshakable belief that freedom was worth any sacrifice. The humans who had started the revolution gradually faded from the spotlight. They served in coalition fleets and councils, but always as partners rather than leaders. Earth became one voice among thousands, though other species quietly acknowledged that it remained the coalition's moral center. On the 20th anniversary of the Liberation War's end, a ceremony was held on the former hegemony capital world. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to honor those who had died for freedom and to reaffirm their commitment to the principles that bound them together. Secretary General Williams, now elderly but still sharp, delivered the keynote address from the same balcony where hegemony leaders had once proclaimed their dominion over the stars. 20 years ago, she said, a soldier named Zekthara stood before the Galactic Council and warned them about humanity. He told them we were dangerous. He was right. She paused, looking out at the massive crowd of beings from hundreds of worlds. We were dangerous to tyrants. We were dangerous to oppressors. We were dangerous to anyone who believed that might makes right, but we were never dangerous to those who chose freedom. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. When it finally died down, Williams continued. The greatest lesson of our war was not that humans are exceptional. It was that all beings are exceptional when they fight for what they believe in. The hegemony fell not because humanity was strong, but because the idea of freedom is stronger than any empire. As the ceremony concluded, Zekthara made his way to the podium for his own address. At nearly 200 years old, he was one of the last surviving witnesses to the galaxy's transformation. I was asked to speak today about the humans, he began, his voice still strong despite his age. About their courage, their determination, their refusal to surrender even when faced with impossible odds. He looked out at the crowd, seeing species that had been enemies now standing together as friends. But the truth is, there was nothing uniquely human about what they did. They simply remembered something that the rest of us had forgotten, that freedom is not a privilege to be granted by the powerful. It is a right to be claimed by the brave. He gestured to the mixed crowd before him. Look around you. Every species represented here has produced heroes. Every world has stories of beings who chose to fight rather than submit. The humans did not save the galaxy. They reminded the galaxy how to save itself. As Zekthara's words echoed across the gathering, children from dozens of worlds listened with wide eyes to stories of the Liberation War. They would grow up in a galaxy where slavery was a historical curiosity, where cooperation was the norm, and where the idea that any being could own another was as absurd as claiming to own the stars themselves. The memorial ceremonies concluded with the traditional reading of the Coalition Charter, signed on Earth but ratified by every member world. We hold these truths to be universal, that all sentient beings are created equal, that they are endowed with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. As the words echoed across the former capital of tyranny, now transformed into a center of freedom, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the crowd, elderly humans who had fought in those first desperate battles smiled as they watched alien children play together in peace, knowing that their sacrifices had not been in vain. The war was over. The peace had begun, and it would endure for as long as beings remembered that freedom is not free, but it is always worth the price paid to secure it.
Captain Jack Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Resilient, watching the stars streak by the main view screen. The ship was humanity's pride, their first true deep space vessel, built for both exploration and diplomacy. After 50 years of slow expansion beyond their solar system, humans were finally ready to meet the Valan Confederacy as equals. Status report, Jack said, his voice calm but firm. All systems running at peak efficiency, Captain, replied First Officer Diane Wells from her station. We'll reach Valan space in 3 days. Jack nodded, satisfied. The mission was simple: establish formal diplomatic relations with the Valan, a species that had been watching human development from afar, but had only recently agreed to official contact. The success of this mission would open new trade routes, technological exchanges, and alliances that Earth desperately needed. What Jack didn't know was that not everyone wanted this mission to succeed. The first sign of trouble came at 300 ship time. Jack was jerked from sleep by the wail of emergency sirens. He grabbed his uniform and was halfway to the bridge before the ship-wide announcement system activated. All hands to emergency stations. Repeat, all hands to emergency stations. This is not a drill. When Jack reached the bridge, chaos greeted him. Warning lights flashed across every console. The main lights flickered, plunging the bridge into darkness before the backup systems kicked in with a dull red glow. Report, Jack demanded as he took his chair. Diane's face was grim in the emergency lighting. We've got cascading system failures across the ship, Captain. Life support is down to 60% and falling. Main reactor is shutting down. Navigation is giving us incorrect readings. How is this possible? Jack asked. Everything was fine 4 hours ago. Before anyone could answer, Chief Engineer Lisa Reed's voice came through on the comm system. "Captain, you need to see this. Now." In the engine room, Lisa pointed to her workstation screen. Jack leaned in, squinting at what looked like microscopic machines. "What am I looking at, Chief?" "Nanobots, sir. Thousands of them. They're systematically destroying our systems from the inside out." Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead. The engine room was already getting hot as climate controls failed. They're attacking power conduits, navigation circuits, life support, everything. "Sabotage?" Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. Lisa nodded. "No doubt about it. These aren't random failures. These little bastards were programmed to bring us down." Security Officer Marcus Black appeared at Jack's side, his tablet showing surveillance footage. "Captain, I think I found how they got on board." He played a video showing a maintenance worker at Outpost 7, their last stop before heading to Valen space. The worker was accessing a maintenance panel near the main reactor. "Who is that?" Jack asked. "That's the problem, sir. He doesn't exist in our crew manifest or station records, and he's nowhere on the ship now." Jack felt a cold realization sweep over him. "Can we neutralize these nanobots?" Lisa shook her head. "Not with what we have on board. They're using technology I've never seen before. By the time we figure it out." She didn't need to finish her sentence. Back on the bridge, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Oxygen levels were dropping throughout the ship. The main reactor was now operating at just 15% capacity. Navigation systems showed them drifting off course, heading into an unmapped region of space. "Communications, keep trying emergency channels," Jack ordered. "Someone must be in range." Communications Officer Alex Foster worked frantically at his station. "Sir, I'm picking up something, but it's not on any of our frequencies." He adjusted some settings. "It's encrypted, but our systems are managing a rough translation." Jack moved to the comm station as Alex put the transmission on speaker. The voice was distinctly non-human, with a clicking quality beneath the translation. "Confirmation that the human vessel has been neutralized. Their systems are failing as planned." A second voice replied, "Excellent. The Council will be pleased. These humans advance too quickly. Another century of isolation should keep them contained until we're ready to deal with them properly." The bridge fell silent as the transmission ended. Jack looked around at his crew, seeing the same realization dawn on all their faces. "They set us up," Diane said quietly. "This whole diplomatic mission was just to get us out here alone." Jack's jaw tightened. "Communications, what's our status? Can we send a warning to Earth?" Alex shook his head. "Long-range comms are completely down, sir. Even if we could send a message, it would take weeks to reach home." "And rescue?" Jack asked, already knowing the answer. "We're off all charted routes now," Diane replied. "Even if they send ships looking for us, they won't know where to search. We're on our own." Dr. James Reynolds, the ship's medical officer, stepped onto the bridge. "Captain, at the current rate of oxygen depletion, we have approximately 72 hours of breathable air. That's assuming we can keep the scrubbers running at all." Jack stood still for a long moment, feeling the weight of 120 lives on his shoulders. Then something shifted in his expression. "Chief Reed," he called over the comm. "You said these nanobots are technology you've never seen before, correct?" "Yes, sir. Far beyond anything we have." "Then they've made a critical mistake," Jack said. "They didn't just try to kill us. They handed us their technology in the process." He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "I want every scientist and engineer on this ship working on capturing and analyzing these nanobots. If they can break our systems, we can learn how they work." "Captain," Marcus protested, "we don't have time for a research project. We need emergency repairs." "We're going to do both, Mr. Black," Jack cut him off. "Lisa, focus your team on keeping life support and basic systems running. Science teams will work on the nanobots. Jack activated the ship-wide comm. Attention all crew of the UES Resilient. By now you know we've been attacked, sabotaged by those who invited us here under the guise of peace. They wanted to strand us here to die, to send a message that humans don't belong among the stars. He paused, letting his words sink in. But they made one critical error. They wanted to break our ship. Fine. We'll just have to build something better. From this moment, we are not just fighting for survival. We are going to take what they used against us and turn it into our salvation. And when we're done, we're going to show them exactly what humans do when backed into a corner. As he finished speaking, Jack noticed something out the viewport. Strange patterns of light in the space they were drifting into, radiation or energy unlike anything in their charts. Mr. Foster, record and analyze the phenomena, he ordered, pointing to the viewport. It might be nothing, but right now we need every advantage we can find. Jack looked around the bridge at his crew, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. We have 72 hours to defy death. Lisa Reed hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her hands were steady as she worked, but dark circles had formed under her eyes. The engine room of the UES Resilient had become a hive of frantic activity as crew members worked to keep the dying ship alive. "Chief, you need to see this," called Tom Wilson, her assistant engineer. He was hunched over a workbench, a captured nanobot trapped in a magnetic containment field. Lisa joined him, peering at the microscopic machine. "What am I looking at?" "It's not just destroying our systems," Tom explained, his voice rising with excitement despite their dire situation. "It's scanning them first, sending the data somewhere before it attacks." Lisa's tired mind suddenly sharpened. "They're not just trying to kill us. They're studying us." She tapped her comm badge. "Captain Morgan, we have something." On the bridge, Jack listened as Lisa explained her discovery. Oxygen levels had stabilized at 40% of normal, enough to survive, but everyone was feeling the effects. Moving was harder. Thinking was harder. "So they're gathering intelligence while they destroy us," Jack said. "Can we use that somehow?" "Maybe," Lisa replied. "The nanobots have to be communicating with each other and sending data outward. If we can crack their transmission method." "Do it," Jack ordered. And Lisa, the quantum computer in the science lab, was shielded against radiation. It might have survived the attack. Use it if you need to. As the communication ended, Jack turned to Science Officer Emma Wright. "What about the energy patterns outside the ship? Any progress?" Emma nodded, her movements slightly sluggish in the oxygen-thin air. "It's unlike anything we've encountered before, Captain. The radiation interacts with certain metals in our hull in ways that defy our understanding of physics. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Jack prompted when she hesitated. "Like it's alive," Emma finished. "Not sentient, but reactive, changing in response to our presence." Jack stared at the viewport where the strange lights pulsed outside. "Could we harness it somehow?" Emma blinked in surprise. "I don't know. Maybe? But that would require completely redesigning our power systems." "Start working on it," Jack said. "Right now, impossible ideas are all we've got." In the science lab, Lisa and Tom had commandeered the quantum computer. A dozen captured nanobots were suspended in containment fields around them as the computer ran analysis protocols. "This is insane," Tom muttered, staring at the results on the screen. "These things operate using quantum entanglement. They're communicating instantly across space. No delay, no signal that can be blocked." Lisa leaned closer to the screen. "That's technology we theorized but couldn't build yet. And look at how they manipulate energy at the subatomic level. They're not just machines. They're like tiny reality manipulators." The door slid open, and Marcus Black entered. "Please tell me you have good news." Lisa looked up, a strange light in her eyes despite her exhaustion. "Better than good. We've been asking the wrong question." We've been asking how to destroy these nanobots. But what we should be asking is, how do we make them work for us? Marcus frowned. What are you talking about? These machines are decades ahead of our technology, Lisa explained. But we can understand them. And if we can understand them, we can copy them. Tom finished, a slow smile spreading across his face. Captain Morgan had called an emergency meeting in the briefing room. Around the table sat his senior officers, all showing signs of fatigue, but all. Let me make sure I understand, Jack said, looking at Lisa. You think we can reprogram these nanobots? Not exactly, Lisa replied. They're too complex for that, but we can use them as templates to create our own version. The quantum computer has already mapped their basic structure. With some modifications, we could build nanobots that repair instead of destroy. And I've been analyzing that strange radiation, Emma added. It responds to electrical fields in a way that could potentially be harnessed for power. If we could develop a new kind of energy collector, how long would all this take? Jack asked. Lisa and Emma exchanged glances. Under normal circumstances, years, Lisa admitted. But we don't have years. We have about 36 hours of oxygen left. So it's impossible, Marcus said flatly. Not impossible, Lisa countered. Just highly improbable. But we have one advantage. What's that? Diane asked. We're human, Lisa said simply. When have we ever let impossible stop us? Jack stood up, his decision made. We're not just making repairs anymore. We're rebuilding this ship from the inside out. I want every crew member with engineering or scientific knowledge working on this project. Captain, Dr. Reynolds protested. People are already exhausted from the oxygen deprivation. Pushing them harder could be dangerous. Being dead is also dangerous, Doctor, Jack replied grimly. But you're right. Set up a rotation. 4 hours on, 2 hours rest, and increase the oxygen levels in the work areas as much as possible. As the meeting broke up, Jack held back Lisa and Emma. He pulled a small object from his pocket, a smooth stone with swirling patterns. This was given to me by my grandfather, he said quietly. He flew the first manned mission to Mars. He told me that space will always find new ways to kill you, but humans will always find more creative ways to live. He placed the stone on the table between them. They gave us the knife they meant to kill us with, he said, examining the holographic model of the captured nanobots floating above the table. Let's use it to carve our way home. The next 24 hours aboard the Resilient became a blur of activity. The ship's corridors, normally neat and orderly, were now strewn with open panels and exposed circuitry. Crew members passed tools back and forth, their conversations a mix of technical jargon and desperate brainstorming. In the engine room, Lisa had set up what she called a nanoforge, using the ship's 3D printing systems, modified with parts from the medical bay's molecular synthesizers. The quantum computer ran continuous simulations, testing and refining designs for their own nanobots. Tom had taken a different approach, stripping the propulsion system down to its most basic components and rebuilding it to interact with the strange radiation outside. His small team worked in environmental suits, making modifications to the ship's exterior hull. On the bridge, Emma coordinated the various teams, while Jack moved throughout the ship, offering encouragement and making quick decisions when different departments disagreed on priorities. By hour 30, the first batch of human-made nanobots was ready for testing. Lisa placed them on a damaged circuit board from one of the life support systems. Moment of truth, she said, activating the tiny machines. Everyone in the room held their breath as the nanobots went to work. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the microscopic machines began to move, surrounding the damaged areas of the circuit. Metal began to flow like water, components realigned, and before their eyes, the dead circuit board came back to life. Lisa looked up at Jack with exhausted triumph in her eyes. It works. For the first time in days, Jack Morgan This isn't a repair job anymore, Lisa announced to the gathered engineering team. We're completely rebuilding the Resilient from the inside out. 5 days had passed since the sabotage. The immediate danger of suffocation had passed. Their newly created nanobots had restored basic life support to full capacity. But Captain Morgan wanted more than just survival. In the main cargo bay, now converted into their central workshop, a holographic model of the ship floated in the air. Different sections glowed with different colors, showing progress on their transformation. The navigation and propulsion systems are our priority, Lisa continued. Tom's team has made significant breakthroughs with the radiation harvesting technology. Tom stepped forward, his face tired but excited. We're calling it void energy for now. It's like nothing we've seen before. The strange radiation outside the ship responds to electrical fields, almost like it's attracted to them. We've built collectors that can pull it in and convert it to usable power. How much power? Asked Jack, who was standing at the back of the room. Tom smiled. Based on our tests, about 5 times what our original engines could produce. And that's just the beginning. A murmur of excitement rippled through the gathered crew. For the first time, they weren't just fighting for survival, they were creating something revolutionary. In the communications lab, Alex Foster worked with a small team to implement Lisa's most ambitious idea. A new communication system based on the quantum entanglement principles they discovered in the alien nanobots. If this works, Alex explained to Jack during his inspection, we'll be able to communicate instantly across any distance. No delay, no signal that can be intercepted or blocked. Will it work? Jack asked, studying the complex equipment spread across the lab tables. In theory, yes. In practice, Alex shrugged. We're doing in days what might have taken Earth decades to develop, but the principles are sound. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Keep at it. If we can send a warning to Earth about the Valen's true intentions, we'll be saving lives, Alex finished. Not everyone embraced the rapid changes. In the security office, Marcus Black voiced his concerns to the captain. We're moving too fast, he argued. These technologies haven't been properly tested. The nanobots, this void energy, we don't fully understand them yet. We don't have the luxury of time for proper testing, Jack replied. Every day we stay here increases the chance that the Valen will send ships to confirm our destruction. And what happens if these new systems fail catastrophically? Marcus pressed. What if the nanobots decide to turn against us? What if this radiation we're harvesting has unforeseen effects? Jack placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Your caution is noted and appreciated, Marcus. But sometimes the greater risk is in not taking a risk at all. In the medical bay, Dr. Reynolds had similar concerns. He showed Jack the results of his tests on crew members who had been working with the void energy. There are subtle changes in their cellular activity, he explained. Nothing harmful so far. In fact, their cells show increased energy and regenerative capabilities. But it's change, and change we don't fully understand. Jack studied the medical scans. Monitor it closely. At the first sign of actual harm, we'll reassess. Captain, the doctor said hesitantly, there's something else. The ship itself, it's changing in ways that go beyond our modifications. Explain. The nanobots are learning. They're not just following their programming anymore. They're adapting, finding more efficient ways to integrate the new systems. The ship is becoming, well, I don't have a better word for it than alive. Jack was silent for a long moment. Is it a threat? No, Reynolds said quickly. It seems more like symbiosis. The ship is responding to our needs, almost before we articulate them. Jack nodded slowly. Then we'll continue. But keep watching, Doctor. Keep watching very carefully. By the 10th day, the transformation was nearly complete. The UES Resilient didn't just look different, it felt different. The walls hummed with energy. Lights responded to crew members' presence without commands. The ship moved through space with a grace it had never possessed before. On the bridge, Jack called a meeting of his senior officers to discuss their next steps. The Void Energy Propulsion System is fully operational, Lisa reported. Based on our calculations, we could reach Earth in a fraction of the time it would have taken with our original engines. The quantum communication system is online as well, Alex added. We've sent test signals. Our defensive capabilities have exceeded all expectations, Marcus said, his earlier caution now tempered with amazement. The energy shields derived from the void radiation can withstand impacts and energy weapons far beyond anything we previously could handle. And the ship itself is becoming more responsive, Emma noted. The integration of our nanobots throughout all systems has created a kind of distributed intelligence. Not exactly an AI, but something new. Jack took in all the information, then stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, the strange radiation patterns danced around the ship like living light. We came out here to establish first contact with the Valen, he said quietly. Instead, we've achieved something far more significant. The next evolution of human space travel. He turned back to his officers. I believe it's time we give this ship a new name to match its new nature. From this moment on, we are no longer the UES Resilient. What shall we call her, Captain? Asked Diane. Jack smiled. Phoenix. The UES Phoenix, because we have risen from our own destruction. What's our course, sir? The navigation officer asked. Jack considered for a moment. The logical choice was to return to Earth immediately with their revolutionary technology and warning about the Valen threat. But something else tugged at him, a sense that their journey wasn't complete yet. Set a course that will intercept the Valen patrol routes, he finally decided. Before we go home, I want the people who tried to kill us to see exactly what they created instead. A tense silence fell over the bridge. Then, one by one, the officers nodded in agreement. Engage the void drive, Jack ordered. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you try to eliminate humanity. The ship, now the UES Phoenix, hummed with power. The new engines glowed with unearthly light, drawing in the surrounding radiation. Then, in a flash of brilliance that would have been impossible just days before, the Phoenix leaped forward into the darkness, faster than any human vessel had ever traveled. They weren't running home to safety. They were flying toward their would-be killers, not for revenge, but for justice and recognition. The message was clear. Humanity would not be confined, contained, or eliminated. They would simply adapt, evolve. Multiple ships detected at the edge of our sensor range, announced Emma from her science station. Configuration matches Valen warships. It had been 2 days since the Phoenix had set course for the Valen patrol routes. The ship had performed beyond all expectations, its new void energy drive carrying them smoothly through space at speeds that would have been impossible before. Captain Jack Morgan stood from his command chair and moved to the main view screen. How many? 5 vessels, Captain. One appears to be a command ship, significantly larger than the others. Jack turned to Alex at the communication station. Are they transmitting anything? Alex adjusted controls on his panel. Yes, sir. Internal communications only, but our quantum receivers are picking them up. He paused, listening through his earpiece. They're talking about us, Captain. About the human problem. They're coming to verify our destruction. A tense silence fell over the bridge. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the confrontation with those who had tried to eliminate them. But now that it was here, Jack felt a flutter of doubt. Were they ready? Lisa's voice came over the comm system from engineering. Captain, the Phoenix is responding to the Valen presence. Power levels are rising automatically in defensive systems. The ship is protecting itself, Diane murmured. Jack nodded. Let's not rush in. Emma, can we mask our energy signature? Make ourselves look like debris or a natural phenomenon? Emma worked quickly at her console. The void energy naturally distorts sensor readings. With some adjustments, yes, I believe we can appear as nothing more than space debris. "Do it," Jack ordered. "Let's see what they have to say about us when they think we can't hear them." The Phoenix hung silently in space, its systems powered down to minimal levels, its energy signature disguised. The 5 Valen warships moved closer, their sleek, angular forms cutting through the darkness like predatory fish. On the bridge, the crew waited in near darkness, only essential systems running. Alex listened intently to the Valen communications, relaying them in whispers to the captain. "The lead ship is Commander Thax's vessel. He's ordering the others to spread out in a search pattern. They're looking for confirmation of our destruction." Jack's expression hardened. This Commander Thax was clearly one of those responsible for the sabotage plot. "They're discussing debris patterns," Alex continued. "They expected to find more substantial remains of our ship." "Little do they know," Tom whispered from his station. The largest Valen ship passed within 1,000 kilometers of the Phoenix, close enough that they could see it clearly on their view screen. It was an impressive vessel, its hull covered in what appeared to be weapon ports and sensor arrays. "Incoming transmission from the Valen command ship to their fleet," Alex reported. "Decoding now." He put it on the bridge speakers, the translation system converting the alien language to English. "This sector is clear," came a cold, precise voice. "The human vessel must have drifted further than anticipated. Continue the search pattern. We must..." A second voice responded. "Commander Thax, sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns in this sector. It could be residue from their reactor breach." "Investigate it," ordered the first voice, "but maintain caution. If any portion of their ship remains intact, destroy it. The humans cannot be allowed to establish a presence in this part of space. Their technological development is already proceeding faster than anticipated." Jack turned to Marcus at the security station. "Record everything. We need evidence of their intentions." Marcus nodded grimly, his fingers moving over his console. "Another transmission," Alex announced. "This one is different. It's coming from one of the smaller ships." The new voice sounded younger, with a note of confusion. "Commander, I've reviewed the diplomatic directives from the Council. There's no mention of eliminating the human vessel. Our orders were to observe and report only." A tense pause followed. "Captain Nirok," Commander Thax replied with obvious irritation, "your ship was included in this mission because of your technical expertise, not to question orders. The full directive from the High Council is classified. You will follow my commands without further discussion." "That's interesting," Jack murmured. "Not everyone in their fleet knows the truth about this mission." "Sir," Emma called urgently from her station, "one of their scout ships is approaching our position. They're using active scans. If they get much closer, our camouflage won't hold." Jack made his decision instantly. "Alex, establish a quantum link to Captain Nirok's ship only. Lisa, bring power systems to full readiness, but don't engage yet." "Captain," Marcus protested, "we should maintain our cover until..." "They're going to find us anyway," Jack cut him off. "I want to control how that happens." Alex worked frantically at his station. Quantum link established to the smaller Valen vessel. Channel open. Jack took a deep breath. "Captain Nirok of the Valen fleet. This is Captain Jack Morgan of the Earth vessel Phoenix. We know the truth about your mission here. We have recorded Commander Thax's orders regarding our elimination." There was no immediate response, just a long silence. Then, "Human vessel. How are you still functioning? Our sensors showed catastrophic system failures throughout your ship." "We adapted," Jack replied simply. "We survived your sabotage, Captain Nirok. And in doing so, we discovered things about ourselves, and about the Valen leadership, that we never would have known otherwise." Another voice broke in, the cold, precise tones of Commander Thax. "All vessels, battle formations. The human ship has somehow survived. Destroy it immediately." Jack could hear alarms blaring in the background of Nirok's transmission. "Human captain, you must flee. You cannot withstand our weapons." "We're not running," Jack said firmly. "But we're not here for revenge either. We want the truth to be known. Your commander acted without full council approval, didn't he? Not all Valen want war with humanity." Before Nera could respond, Emma shouted from her station. "Energy buildup on the Valen command ship. They're charging weapons." "Lisa," Jack called over the comm. "Time to show them what Phoenix can do." The ship hummed to life around them, void energy flowing through its systems. The lighting returned to normal, and displays showed power levels rising far beyond their original specifications. "Defensive shields at maximum," Marcus reported. "New weapon systems online." The Valen command ship fired, a beam of intense energy slashing across space toward the Phoenix. It struck the shields and dissipated harmlessly, absorbed by the void energy field surrounding the ship. A collective gasp went up from the bridge crew. Their shields had worked even better than the simulations predicted. "Our turn," Jack said quietly. "Target their weapon systems only. Minimal power. We're making a point, not starting a war." Marcus entered the commands, and the Phoenix responded. A pulse of concentrated void energy shot from the ship, striking the Valen command vessel with surgical precision. Their main weapon port went dark immediately. "Their weapons are offline," Marcus reported with satisfaction. "No other damage to their ship." "Open a channel to all Valen vessels," Jack ordered. When Alex nodded that the channel was open, Jack spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Captain Jack Morgan of the UES Phoenix. We were invited to your space for diplomatic talks. Instead, we were sabotaged and left to die. But what your leadership didn't understand is that humanity doesn't break when faced with destruction. We transform." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We have disabled your weapons as a demonstration, not as an act of war. We are transmitting evidence of Commander Fax's true orders regarding our elimination. Review it for yourselves. Then decide what kind of relationship the Valen truly want with humanity." As he finished speaking, the Phoenix's sensors detected new energy readings from the Valen fleet. Two of the smaller ships, including Captain Nerox, were powering down their weapons. The other two remained in attack formation around the command. The bridge of the Phoenix was silent as the crew watched the Valen fleet split into two groups. Captain Nerox's ship and one other had moved away from Commander Fax's vessels, clearly distancing themselves from his actions. "Sir," Alex reported from communications, "we're receiving a transmission from Captain Nerox." Jack nodded. On screen. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the alien captain. The Valen were humanoid, but with striking differences. Iridescent blue skin, large eyes with horizontal pupils, and bony ridges where hair would be on a human. "Captain Morgan," Nerox said, his voice translated through the ship's systems. "My crew and I have reviewed your evidence. Commander Fax acted without full council approval. This sabotage was not authorized." Jack studied the alien carefully. "And yet it happened. Your people tried to kill mine." Nerox lowered his gaze in what seemed like a gesture of shame. "Yes, and for that, there is no adequate apology. But you should know that Fax represents only one faction among our leadership, those who fear your kind's rapid advancement." "Captain," Marcus called out suddenly. "The command ship is powering up secondary weapons." Before Jack could respond, a barrage of energy blasts shot from Fax's vessel toward the Phoenix. The ship's shields flared bright with absorbed energy, but held firm. The other two Valen ships in Fax's group also opened fire. "No damage," Lisa reported from engineering. "Our shields are actually growing stronger. They're adapting to the attack patterns and frequencies." Jack's expression hardened. "Return fire. Target their propulsion systems this time." The Phoenix responded instantly, void energy weapons striking all three attacking ships with precision. Their engines flared and went dark, leaving them drifting in space. "They're disabled but intact," Marcus confirmed. life support and basic systems still functioning. Jack turned back to the still open communication with Nerok. We could have destroyed them. Remember that. Nerok nodded slowly. Your restraint is unexpected, and your technology, it far exceeds our understanding of human capabilities. That's the point you missed, Jack replied. Humans don't advance on a predictable timeline. When pushed, we leap forward. You tried to eliminate us because you feared our potential. But in doing so, you only accelerated what might have taken us decades to achieve on our own. A new transmission cut in. Commander Thax, his face contorted with rage. This changes nothing. The Council will send more ships. Your single vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against our entire fleet. Jack simply smiled. We don't need to. Alex, send the package. Alex tapped a series of commands on his console. Quantum data package transmitted to all Valen worlds and outposts. What have you done? Thax demanded. We've shared everything, Jack explained calmly. The evidence of your unauthorized sabotage. The schematics of our new technology, not detailed enough to replicate, but enough to prove what we've accomplished. And most importantly, our offer of peaceful cooperation despite your attempt to destroy us. Thax's face paled to a lighter blue. You can't have transmitted to all our worlds simultaneously. The distances. Instant communication across any distance. Jack cut him off. Just one of the things we learned from studying your nanobots. Your sabotage gave us the keys to technologies your people are still developing. Nerok's voice came back over the comm. Captain Morgan, I am receiving messages from the High Council. They are disturbed by the evidence. Commander Thax is ordered to stand down immediately. On the view screen, they could see Thax's ship powering down its remaining weapons. The commander's face showed a mixture of disbelief and defeat. What happens now? Jack asked. The Council requests a proper diplomatic meeting, Nerok replied. They are sending representatives not associated with Thax's faction. They offer safe passage and formal recognition of Earth as an independent power. Jack looked around at his crew. Each face showed the same mixture of pride and caution. We accept, Jack said finally. But the meeting will take place on neutral ground, not on a Valen world. And as a show of good faith, I expect Commander Thax to face consequences for his actions. Agreed, Nerok said. I will personally ensure. 3 days later, the Phoenix hovered near a small neutral outpost that served as a trading hub for several species. In a large meeting chamber, Captain Morgan and his senior officers sat across from 5 Valen Council representatives. Commander Thax was notably absent, having been removed from his position and detained pending a formal inquiry. We misjudged humanity, admitted the lead counselor, an elderly Valen with deep blue skin. Or rather, some among us did. We saw your rapid technological advancement as a threat rather than an opportunity. It nearly became a self-fulfilling prophecy, Jack pointed out. By trying to eliminate us, you forced us to advance even faster. The counselor nodded. A lesson we have learned at great cost. The technology your ship now possesses, particularly the void energy manipulation and quantum communication, is beyond even our most advanced theoretical research. Which brings us to the main point of these talks, Diane said. You wanted to contain humanity because you feared our potential. Now that potential has been realized ahead of schedule, where does that leave us? The counselors exchanged glances before their leader spoke again. It leaves us with a choice. Continue down the path of fear and competition, which would likely lead to conflict, or forge a new path of cooperation and mutual advancement. And which do you choose? Jack asked simply. We choose cooperation, the counselor replied. Not just because we have seen your capabilities, but because we have seen your character. You could have destroyed Thax's ships. You could have used your new technology to threaten our worlds. Instead, you showed restraint and offered peace despite our aggression. Jack smiled slightly. That's the other thing you misjudged about humanity. We're not just adaptable and inventive. We genuinely prefer friends to enemies. The lead counselor extended a four-fingered hand across the table. Then let us be friends, Captain Morgan. There is much our peoples can learn from each other. As Jack shook the alien's hand, he felt the weight of the moment. What had begun as a simple diplomatic mission, turned into a fight for survival, had now come full circle, but with humanity entering the galactic community not as newcomers to be watched and contained, but as equals to be respected. 1 month later, the Phoenix returned to Earth orbit. As the blue-green planet filled the view screen, the crew gathered on the bridge for Jack's address. "We left Earth in a ship that represented the best of human technology," Jack said, looking around at the faces of his crew. "We return in a vessel that represents something far greater, the best of the human spirit, our adaptability, our resilience, our ability to transform disaster into opportunity." He gestured to the viewport, where Earth hung like a jewel against the blackness of space. "What we bring back will change everything, not just technology, but a new understanding of our place in the galaxy. The Valen tried to keep us confined to our corner of space because they feared what we might become." Jack smiled. "They were right to be afraid, but not because we're a threat. Because when humanity reaches for the stars, we don't just adapt to the universe. We transform it.